was 2013. I was 37 years old. My kids were 9, 5, and 1. We just moved into a cool, trendy neighborhood in Cincinnati where you could walk to bars and restaurants. And I'd just been promoted. So on the outside, life looked pretty awesome. But on the inside, it was a whole different story. I'd just been promoted over my boss, so I now was leading him. I was vice president of a division, and we were the largest EBITDA profit contributor to an overall billion-dollar company. So a lot of pressure. And how this pressure played out in my life was a little bit imposter syndrome. Maybe some of you have felt this way before. I just was waiting for them to come knock on the door and be like, Cory, sorry, we over-promoted you. You're way better at sales than you are leading people, so would you please go back out to the field? So how this translated in my personal life is I started skipping the gym. I started skipping quiet time. I remember being on the couch at night and my kids would be playing on the floor, and I had my laptop on my lap and my face just buried into it. James 1:11 says that a rich man or rich woman will fade away in their own pursuits. I was fading away. And every day I was trying to keep up, trying to call my direct reports, trying to make sure my email inbox was empty, make sure that profit and loss statement looked awesome. And maybe some of you have felt this way, where you're on that treadmill, just level 10 going as fast as you can't keep up. This day was no different. Every day when I'd drive home from the office, I'd be on the phone. I'd call every direct report I could. I'd call some strategic partners. I was trying to maximize every single second. This day, I pull up to the front of my house. I'm parked on the street, finishing my conversation. And then I look out and I see my 5-year-old come running towards me. Daddy, Daddy. I'm looking at her. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm kind of thinking about what I do. I want to be there for my team. I want to make sure I'm a good leader. I look at her, what do I do? I think, how have I helped this guy? So I made a choice that day that I've been making a lot at that time in my life. I looked at her and I said, no, not now. Go. I'm on a call. She looks at me confused, perplexed, and kind of runs back to the house. I finish my car and I sit there. And maybe none of you have ever shooed your kids away. You guys are all good Christians and kingdom way people. And so maybe this is just me up here. But as I sat there wrapping up that call, I was like, what am I doing? What kind of father, husband, leader am I? That night, as I tossed and turned and just had this sense of, Cory, there's a better way. And I didn't know what that better way was. But within a couple weeks, I was at a leadership event, and there was a speaker who was talking home and work, and it was talking to my soul. It's like, maybe this is what I need. And I went up to him and said, do you do coaching? Little did I know every speaker coaches and every coach, speaks. And so he said, yes. And I ended up hiring him on the spot. My life immediately started to change. I started to learn to win at work. I had to win at home first. I became so passionate about this topic, I wrote a book about it. I've had the opportunity to coach over 220 leaders in the last 5.5 years on this content and see change. Had the blessing to speak to thousands of people on this same topic and see change. See, we've been told this lie that it's an either or. You can either climb up the corporate ladder and have tons of success, or be a connected mother or father. Or you can climb up, get that promotion, or hang out with your friends, get to the gym, do those things. We are told this either or. And if you don't get anything out of today, except this one thought, I want all of us in this room to believe that you can win at both home and work. Yes, it takes sacrifices. Yes, it takes intentionality. But it can be done. I've seen change in my life. I've seen change in thousands of others. Before we go any further, I want to thank Kingdom Way for having me here. Thank all the sponsors for sponsoring. It's pretty awesome. Some of you I had a chance to meet in June. Thanks for showing up a second time. That's pretty cool. What we're going to do this morning is the first part, I'm going to share kind of, hey, how do we even get here to this either or? As well as a framework called the 5 capitals that has been significant in my life. Some of you may have seen it, whether you've read the book Win at Home First or through other ways, but it's a framework I learned in 2013 that I still use. I've taught my kids it, I've taught clients. I use it for my annual planning. I use it to recalibrate when I get off track. So we'll do the 5 capitals, then we'll break out, talk amongst your tables with some questions we have. Then we'll come back and I will share a framework with you called the WIN, W-I-N exclamation point. This framework will help set you up for success for 2026. And so I'm looking forward to going through this content today. So going back to 2013, when I hired this coach, it didn't change immediately. It's still been trial and error, and even just this week, I've had to apologize to my son for getting a little worked up in a video game we played. Because he beat me, and I don't like losing. I'm a little competitive. However, change started to happen, and one of the changes we had to do was starting to dismantle a lie that I took on in high school. Maybe some of you can relate to something similar to holding on, even to your adulthood, lies that you took on in your childhood. For me, the lie I took on was this idea, it's all on me. My mom died when I was 15 years old from a 7-year battle with breast cancer. And during that time, my dad also had some seasons of unemployment. And so with the combination of unemployment, with insurance, chemotherapy, any college savings I had went down, down, down. Their retirement went down, down, down. I didn't have a rough childhood. I don't mean to portray that, but there was this reality that there was no inheritance coming my way. There was no college coming my way, unless it was all on me. So the devil started whispering, hey man, if you're gonna have any success, it's all on you. No handouts coming your way. So I started to believe this lie, that it's all on me. And so how that translated in my life is I just began striving. I got a degree in civil engineering in college. Not because I loved engineering, but I heard they paid well. I then got a great job out of college in Kansas City being an engineer. I didn't like it. It was a great company. I actually just had an opportunity to go speak to them a couple weeks ago. But I wasn't moving up the ladder fast enough for my hopes and dreams. So I started doing some side hustles. I got my MBA. I did all these things to try to scratch this itch that is on me. I then took another corporate job where I was doing civil engineering sales. So I sold storm sewer, sanitary sewer, bridges, real sexy stuff. But it was great. I loved it. I had success in Kansas City, got promoted, moved to Denver, and managed a bunch of people in states. I was here for a handful of years and got promoted, moved to Cincinnati, which eventually gets me to the job I mentioned. But during that time, and maybe like a lot of you, winning at work was easy. If we do this, we'll get promoted. If we follow these, key performance indicators, then this will happen. So I knew what the target was and I went for it. I won the sales trips to Mexico. I won the sales trips to the Ryder Cup. I had great opportunities. But in our personal life, what are the metrics? What are the KPIs? My kids now are 21, 17, and 13. So is it how many sugary lattes I can buy for my daughters? Is it how many times I can play Madden with my son on the PlayStation? It's hard to know how we win at home because there are no measurements. And that's what we're going to talk about. Another misconception we have in this whole journey is we blame it on time. Man, I would do that. I just don't have enough time. And so as you unpack what it looks like, is the reality is we all have 168 hours in a week. And as you start to break it down, 168 hours into a pie chart, if we all work roughly 45 hours a week, you throw in an hour commute, you throw in looking at some email at night, on the weekends, we're all committing roughly 56 hours a a week to work. Next is sleep. If we sleep 8 hours a night, some of you are like, I do not sleep 8 hours a night. Overall, we're probably committing about 8 hours of sleep. We brush our teeth, we get ready, we lay in bed, hopefully we're reading and not looking at our phones. We get up, we brush our teeth, get ready for the day. 8 hours, 7 days a week is 56 hours a week. Which leaves one sliver left, and that's home. We have 56 hours a week to commit to home. Now here's the reality is there's a lot to shove into that. We have to mow the yard, we have to date our spouse, we have to be intentional with our kids. If you're gonna be successful at all, you have to do cold plunges, you have to do red light therapy. Now you have to make sure you take your creatine, both men and women. So there's a lot to cram in there. The beautiful thing about my job is I get to come close to a lot of leaders and see how they live their lives. I have one client, his name's Matt. He runs a $60 million business. He has 9 kids. He lives on land. He's got animals. He has family dinner about every night he's in town. He's engaged with his family. And his work is going well. He may have no idea about social media. He may have no idea about reality TV. I have another client. I won't say his name. He also runs about a $60 million business, has 2 kids. And when I talk to him about family dinners, he's like, oh, we don't. We're both so busy. My wife and I, we both work, and kids got sports. I'm like, okay. What's it like when you are taking your son to practice? Like, what do you guys talk about? Oh, well, most of the time he sits in the passenger seat. He's playing his game. He's got his AirPods in. I'm on a work phone call or listening to a podcast. 2 leaders, significant business sizes, totally different families, but the way they are leading them are different. And I don't know what camp you fall in, where you are in that story of comparison, but here's the deal. We don't have a time problem. We all have the same amount of time. We have a priority problem. And so I battled this priority problem for a long, long time. And then when I learned the 5 capitals, it opened up my eyes. It truly, truly did. I learned in 2013. I'm still talking about it to this day because it had a change. But I'm not just the one with this, feeling, or I share my 2 client stories, the change that they had. Statistics show this as well. 48% of vacation time went unused last year, according to SHRM. Companies have to log it through for HR. 48% went unused. That means people are not planning their year. Yes, they may plan for an annual summer vacation. Yes, they may plan to take some time off for the holidays, but that's it. They're not planning long getaways with their spouse. They're not planning overnights with their kids. They're not planning guy trips or women trips. I guess you call it girl trips. I don't know what you call it, but guy trips, women trips. We're not making plans for that. 48% unused. I hope for all of you, we've got 2 months left in the year, that all of you will consider using all of your PTO this year. And all of you in this room are leaders. You lead by example. If you're not taking vacation, your team's not going to. Because they're like, I may get in trouble. My boss never takes vacation. They'll think I'm a slacker. So I encourage you to go on vacation. I have a client that pays his employees $2,000 to go on vacation, to use it. Because he knows, and science shows this, we go, we get recharged, we have better ideas. Almost all of us have had some pretty cool ideas or moments when we are out on vacation away from our office. So 48% of people are not planning, which leads to another statistic where Forbes magazine says 66% of people are burned out. And I don't think these 66 people are burned out because they don't necessarily like what they do. I just think they find that over day after day after day, they're spending more time on the things that don't matter than what do matter. And we don't get burned out because we forget what to do or how to do it. We get burned out because we forget why to do it. And I think if they did this survey, this says Forbes in 2025, I think if they do it in 2026, they're going to get the other 34% that said they weren't burned out. Because we all can experience it if we don't recalibrate. And so how do we recalibrate? I want to share with you these 5 capitals. Spiritual, relational, physical, intellectual, and then financial. And the idea is we want to get them in this right order. The word capital is significant. Anytime in business, when we have capital, we go to invest into something, we want an ROI. We want that return on investment. If we invest our time, energy, resources into these 5 capitals, there in fact will be an ROI that comes back. The first capital is spiritual capital. The currency for this capital is wisdom and power. We get it through solitude, reflection, discernment. So, how's your quiet time? Do you pray? Do you journal? Do you meditate? There's a book called Lead Yourself First. And it says that the decline in leadership today, it's not a political statement, it has to do with they do studies of hospitals, of education, of politics, of churches. The decline in leadership today is because of the decrease in solitude. Because solitude brings emotional awareness and emotional balance. But for many of us, we are not doing solitude. Even when we go to walk our dog, we have AirPods in. We're not going to do a show of hands, but some people take their phone to the toilet. We also want to do a show of hands. All of us usually get our phones out at a red light. We are not making time for solitude. Harvard Business Review did a study and said all great ideas come from the shower. And the reality is there's no nagging spouse, there's no crying kids, hopefully there's no phone. We're just sitting there thinking. And we've all been in that meeting where someone said, while I was on a run this morning, I thought of ... So spiritual capital. For all these capitals, we're going to rank ourselves 1 through 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. So spiritual capital, 1 is the lowest. You don't know the last time you were by yourself with your thoughts. You haven't read scripture, you haven't been praying, you haven't done worship. Or to 10, and you're thriving. It's a good year, you're spending time in the Word, prayer, meditation. 1 through 10, rank yourself. Obviously, this is very subjective, but just put down your number. The next question is, what's one action you can take in the next week to move that closer to a 10? I'm not saying to a 10. We're not going for perfection here. We're going for progress. So what's one action you could take? Maybe you're going to journal. Maybe you're going to read a chapter a day of the Bible. And we'll talk more about this at our table discussion. But we want to at least do somewhat of a self-awareness, do a test, do assessment. I love this. I saw a guy at Starbucks today, no iPhone, no tablet, no laptop. He just sat there drinking coffee like a psychopath. All of us need to be more like psychopaths. Next time you go to the coffee shop and you're waiting for your prospect, your friend, your whatever to show up, instead of grabbing your phone, say a prayer for thanks for the meeting I just had. Pray for the meeting you're about to have. Give me discernment, Lord. Give me wisdom. Help me be present. Help me be empathetic. How can we grab our phones less so that we can be more present, so that we can be psychopaths? So that's spiritual capital. Second one is relational capital. The currency for this capital is quality and intimacy of friendships or relationships. This is marriage, parenting, friendships. If you're not married, this is dating. But this is about the relationships we have with others. So are you dating your spouse? Are you being intentional with your kids? Do you hang out with friends? We're not going to do it. We will not do a show of hands of who doesn't have any friends in here. That's part of my story. I'll share it in a little bit. But the reality is we are more connected now than we've ever been. Text, Facebook, LinkedIn, Teams. More connected than we've ever been, but yet we're more disconnected than we've ever been. And the statistics are not good, especially for men. Suicide rates are up, drinking is up, gambling is up. Men are not doing well. And it has to do with loneliness. And so as we talk about relationships for all of us, men and women in this room, how can you lean into those relationships? We know lone wolves get taken out, and so it's about community. And so when you think about relationships, dating your spouse, intentional with your kids, 1 through 10, how would you rank yourself? 1, you're not doing very well. You don't know the last time you went on a date with your spouse? You haven't had a lot of one-on-one time with one of your kids? You haven't gathered with any of your friends? To 10, and you're doing great this season. Things are clicking. 1 through 10, how would you rank yourself? Next question, what's one action you can take in the next week to move that closer to a 10? And I encourage you, I've done this a lot. If someone pops in your mind, I need to text Ed, or I need to call Julie, do it. Do it. I encourage you to follow your prompts anytime. You may be great at this already, but anytime any of us have texted somebody that God put on our heart, more than likely we get an immediate text back. Thanks, I needed that today. And God can use us to encourage and fuel other people. So if a name is coming to mind, you need to reach out to them, go for it. Because here, the reality is they need it, and also they're not going to reach out. I don't mean to say share bad news, but people just aren't reaching out like they used to. It's easier just to sit on the couch assuming everyone's busy. Oh, they can't hang out tonight, they're busy. You go first. You go first in your marriage, with your kids, with your friends. Don't wait. See, someone's getting called right now. This is amazing. Hey, when you're 20, 15 people could turn up to your house at any moment. When you're 30, it literally takes 2 months of planning to see a friend. And that just exaggerates when you turn 40, 50, 60. But it's a kind of a fun reality. Next is physical capital. The currency for this capital is time and energy. And how do we steward this well? It's through exercise, sleep, nutrition. So this capital is about, are you exercising? How is your sleep? Do you have any margin in your calendar? If our physical capital is low, we can't do anything good for others. No matter how smart we are, no matter how much money we have. If any of us have stayed up late to watch a Monday night football game, hopefully none of you stayed up to watch 18 innings of baseball the other night. But that next day, you lack curiosity. You lack empathy. It's like, I just got to get through today. I'm so tired. Or we've all been to those big lunches where you have the big chimichanga and then at 2 o'clock you're tired and worthless. That's what this physical capital is about, is how can you steward your time and energy so that you can show up as your best self. The quantity of your no's will drive the quality of your yeses. The quantity of your no's will drive the quality of your yeses. That means a lot to people in this room because all of us, we want to say yes to everything. We want to serve others. Yes, I'll help that nonprofit. Yes, I will join another small group. Yes, I will help you. And that's awesome that we have that heart. But if we are always serving others, then we don't have enough energy to really show up at other times we serve. We're too tired. So physical capital is about how do you steward your time and energy. One thing I'll share with all of you is a hack. If you can increase the gap from when you last look at your phone to when you go to bed, the better. And if you can charge it in another room, awesome. Some of you are like, well, that's my alarm clock. All of you can afford $10 to go buy an alarm clock. But the greater that gap gets, the better. And some of you are like, well, I'm not responding to my emails when I lay in bed. Well, you're thinking about those emails because you're thinking, I just got this email. I probably need to put together a spreadsheet and send it to them. And then they'll probably come back and email me back saying this. So then I'll have to do, I'll provide this document. And it delays you going to sleep. Also, if you can increase the gap in the morning from when you wake up to when you first look at your phone, the better. Because we want to start our day with our own thoughts, with our own hopes and dreams. None of us need to start the day grabbing the phone and finding out something happened on the other side of the world that we can't help, we can't control, but it's bad news. Or that the post we made on social media we thought was going to go viral and help our business and 3 people liked it. Delay as long as possible. So that's physical capital. So 1 through 10. 1 is low, you're tired, you put on some weight this year, you're not in a good spot. Or 10, man, you're doing great. You control your calendar doesn't control you, you're getting your exercise in. 1 through 10, how would you rank yourself? And then the next question, what's one thing you can do in this next week to move that closer to a 10? You throw a bucket of water on a rock and it doesn't do anything. You let a drop of water fall onto a rock every day, it creates a hole. Consistency beats intensity. You don't go to the gym one day and work out super hard for 4 hours and get ripped. It's about showing up throughout the week. The same thing about sleep, nutrition. So if we're going to be better leaders for our families, for our teams at work, it's about stewarding this physical capital. Next is intellectual capital. The currency on intellectual capital, this is about insights and ideas. It's about learning, reading, teaching. And all of you are here, so you're learners. You want to be in this room. You're taking time out of your day to be here. Thank you very much. But there's 2 additional parts about this intellectual capital. What are you implementing? When you listen to a podcast, do you really do anything different? When you read a book, do you do anything different? When you come here today, what action will you implement? Because information plus implementation leads to transformation. You're not going to be any different. You go home and you have a bunch of notes and you throw it on a shelf. But what can you implement? Maybe it's go on a date with your spouse in the next week. Maybe it's to start charging your phone in the other room. The other piece of intellectual capital that could be a game changer is, are you teaching other people? Not just hoarding this information for yourself, think it's a secret weapon, hey, this is how I'm going to get ahead. But how can you share it with others? Maybe share all of today with other people. But intellectual capital is about what are you learning? What are you teaching? Do you have a coach? Do you have a mentor? Once again, we want to rank this 1 through 10. 1, you're not doing very well. You don't know the last book you've read, the podcast you've listened to. Or 10, you're thriving in this area. Not only are you learning, you're teaching. 1 through 10, how would you rank yourself on intellectual capital? And then what's one action you can take in the next week to move it closer to a 10? I love this Netflix billboard, don't give up on your dreams. We started with DVDs. Intellectual capital is about just continuing just to reinvent yourself, to continue to grow. All right, last capital. Financial capital. The currency on financial capital is about stewardship and generosity. Yes, this is about making money. I'm not going to come up here and talk to you about, hey, how to go make money. But what is your relationship with money? Giving, spending, saving. Do you spend money on experience over things? Does money control you or you control money? So for some of you in this room, you may have a story similar to mine of scarcity or believing a lie. Luckily and thankfully, I've had breakthrough in this area that I'm not tied to that lie anymore. And so it has been a journey of generosity and leveraging financial capital for the higher capitals. So it's taking your financial capital and it's spending it on a weekend to remember. It's spending your financial capital on going on a date, joining that gym, hiring that coach, joining that mastermind. So financial capital, what is your relationship with money? 1 to 10, how you rank yourself. 1, man, you're not doing very well. You look at your stocks, your 401k daily. You get worked up with tariffs, you get worked up with the government shutdown because how is it going to affect you and your money? Or 10, man, you're in a good spot. Yeah, there's a lot in this world that's out of our control and may not seem great at times, but you've got a plan of saving, of generosity, and even of spending. So financial capital, how would you rank yourself 1 through 10? And then what's that one action you can take in this next week to move it closer to a 10? So for me, financial capital, as I said, this has been a journey, getting better and better my whole life, trying to. And so for me, it's about spending money on my wife, my kids, my friends. Just some random pictures up there. It's my son and I this summer going to Montana for a turned 13-year-old manhood trip. So spending money on the trip, it also was being away from coaching and speaking. And when you're a solopreneur, that's a real deal. But I did it because that's what matters. I want the ROI on the relational capital, and it's worth leveraging financial capital. Middle picture is a few years ago, went to Nicaragua with my oldest. And then on the picture on the right, a couple years ago, Simone Biles was on a tour. My daughter was a competitive gymnast, and we wanted to go see her. So we traveled to another city, made a weekend of it. There's a phrase out there called memory dividend. That if you've ever spent time with people at a dinner table, the people with the coolest stories, it's usually because they spent money to go create those opportunities. They went on that vacation. They jumped out of the plane. They did whatever it may have been. So how are you creating memory dividends in your life? How are you leveraging financial capital for all the other capitals? Because all of us know we can have a ton of money, but it does us no good if we have no purpose. We don't have people in our life to spend it on. and we're too tired to go do anything with it. One day you'll wake up and there won't be any more time to do the things you've always wanted to do. Do it now. Those are the 5 capitals: spiritual, relational, physical, intellectual, and financial. So next what we want to do is we want to work around our round tables. We'll spend 15 minutes talking to each other about how we rank ourselves, what our actions we're going to take. And here are a few questions to use for our breakout, in case you forget what I just said. All right, ready? Break. All right. For this next part, before we go to our next breakout session, is I just want to share this framework to make sure you have it to take into 2026. And it's this idea of win. Like, who in here wants to win? Like, raise your hand. Who wants to win? Right? We want to win in our marriage. We want to win in our parenting. We want to win at work. But for so often, when I think of win, I think of someone has to lose. It's competitive. I'm going to move up. Someone's moving down. But as I've been on this journey in my life, as well as coming alongside clients, what I've seen is that winning is when my priorities align with my purpose. That when I identify those priorities, such as the 5 capitals, and align with my purpose, then I feel like I'm winning. And so what we're going to do is to take this acronym, who do you want to become? What are intentional actions you can take, numbers you can measure, and how do you celebrate the progress? So for each of the 5 capitals, we're not going to do this today, but I want you to do this for 2026. For each of the 5 capitals, write down your who statement for each capital. For today, what I want to do is I want you to grab the lowest score you have between spiritual, relational, and physical. Odds are your higher scores are going to be intellectual and financial. Almost every room is the same. We're intellectual, financial, by majority, we're higher there, because that's what we go for. But to be that great leader, to be the intentional leader, we have got to get our spiritual, relational, and physical up. So grab your lowest one, and we're going to walk through this exercise. So who do you want to become in 2026? For spiritual capital, maybe you want to be a faith-forward leader. A God-fearing man or woman. What is that statement that you can go back to? For relational, it may be I want to be a loving, serving husband, loving, serving wife. A few years ago, I had a client. He was president of a company, hired me to bring me in to help with culture and vision values. We're having our very first call, and he's bragging about all the great work progress. We just passed 200 employees. We're rolling out this new product. High energy. I was like, hey man, tell me about the family. Energy goes down a little bit. Me and the kids, we went to the farm and we hung out and played. I just kind of got this little prick in my spirit. I was like, what about your spouse? Did she join you? Nah, she doesn't like going. But the energy was even lower. And I could just sense something. And I had this prompting to say something. Be bold and courageous, and I was scared. But as I thought about it, I said, hey, you hired me to help with culture, and we are going to. We're going to put together vision, values, we're going to get it working. But as the leader goes, so goes the company. And if you're not doing well, it's eventually going to catch up with you. Is it okay if we talk about home as well? He gets real quiet, and I'm nervous. I'm like, at the time, this is my largest contract to date. I'm like, I'm going to get fired on the very first phone call. This is awful. So after a long pause, I'm sure it was only 5 seconds. It felt like 5 minutes. But he says, yes, it is okay. Because on the way home from work every day, I get a pit in my stomach before I go back into my house. Yes, we can talk about home. So we put together the who statement. His who statement is, I want to be a loving, serving husband. Which leads us to our intentional action. What is an intentional action you can take to make that statement true? So for spiritual, maybe it is you want to read scripture 5 days a week, or maybe it's every day. You want to journal. Maybe you want to go on a silent retreat this year. Join a small group. What are actions you can take to grow spiritually? Relationally, maybe you and your spouse have not done an overnight in years. Maybe this is the year you go on an overnight. Maybe you've not been on a guy trip or a woman trip in years. Maybe this is the year you go and do something. And so with this client, we put together that statement, I'll be a loving, serving husband. I said, all right, what does that guy do? Well, he should date his spouse. I said, great. Ask her on a date. First time he asked her, she said no. He came back to me like his tail between his legs. I said, well, I'm sorry, that sucks. This is gonna be a journey. Who do you want to become? Well, I want to be a loving, serving husband. Well, then go back in and ask on a date. Second date was about 45 minutes long. It didn't go very well. But he kept showing up. So what are actions you need to take to make that who statement true? Next, what are numbers you're going to measure? For my wife and I, we need 2 dates a month. If we go less than that, we drift. My jokes aren't funny, I'm annoying. And we had to learn that the hard way because we didn't think it was important. I want to go on an overnight with every single one of my kids. I want to do a mission trip with every single one of my kids, just us. I've got one left, my son. I do a guide trip every January. So an intentional action I made is a few years ago, I was talking to my coach and I said, man, I'm just burned out, I'm tired. And as we talked about it, he says, hey, you have no friends, that's the problem. I had some buddies I could grab a beer or coffee with, but the truth is all surface level. So the intentional action I put together is I put together a list of 15 guys and I went speed dating. Yes. And if we just talk sports and weather, I was like, I'll see these guys once every 6 months or something. But for the guys, we talked about the ups and downs of our marriage, the ups and downs of parenting, burnout. We still talk sports and weather. I mean, I'm not a complete dud. But for those guys, put together a group for 7 years, every Thursday morning. I missed this morning, but every Thursday morning we meet. They met, I didn't. And every January we go on a trip. I share that story because if you scored yourself low on relational capital, it can change. You just got to put in some work. So the numbers to measure for me is I want to meet with my guys once a week. Dates 2 times a month. I've got clients who track this stuff in an Excel spreadsheet or Google sheet. You can do the same. There's apps out there. But what we track gets progress. So we don't drift into a great life. We have to do one intentional action at a time. What are the numbers you're going to measure? And the last is, hey, how do we celebrate? We need to celebrate progress because what we celebrate accelerates. This individual who was not going on dates eventually started going on dates. One day he gets on the call. I start all my calls with a win, and he was so excited. I was like, man, you're so giddy. What's going on? He goes, I just wanted to tell you, me and my wife have been going on dates, and something cool happened just this weekend. I said, what is it? He goes, we were walking, and we held hands. First time we held hands in I don't know how long. I said, oh, that's awesome, man. Can't believe I'm celebrating a grown man holding hands, but it happens to couples. It happens. I have a client who just this past Friday night spent the first overnight with his spouse in 4 years since they had their last kid. It happens. People drift. We all drift. As that verse says, I said at the very beginning, a rich man, a rich woman will fade away as they pursue their own desires. We've got to be careful. So that is the WIN acronym. And so as we go back into our groups, and just for these last 5 minutes before we do the panel, I want you to be thinking about this WIN acronym. And when you go between now and the end of the year, put some thought for each of these 5 capitals to come up with a statement. Also, there's a resource, 10 ways to win at home, win at work. There's a free guide. You can go to that QR code and get this resource to help you. It gives you additional ideas on ways to win at home, win at work. That could be helpful to you as you roll this out. And there's another slide we have that does have a QR code. Dan and I were joking before I got here. I probably overshipped a lot of books on accident. I don't know what happened with our team, but something happened. And Dan says, you shipped way too many books. I said, well, I got a thought. I said, I think the leaders there are readers, and they're going to buy the books, and I think they're also generous, and the Christmas is coming up. So I got faith in you. Otherwise, I'd lose the bet. And I owe them some dinner. But we go back to 2013, the story I shared. That day, I was surviving. And with intentional actions, incorporating the 5 capitals, using this WIN acronym to think about who do I want to become. Life's not perfect, but I'm thriving versus surviving. And that same daughter that I shooed away, just a couple weeks ago, her and her boyfriend were in my office, and we were going over their Enneagram. Because I was trying to help them understand each other, understand themselves. And we also talked about the 5 capitals so that they could be both showing up better for themselves. And my daughter says, Dad, thanks. Thanks for doing this. I don't know other dads that are doing that. And I don't share it to brag. I shared to say, I changed because I got serious of what I want to be important in my life. And so for all of you, before we go into this breakout session and you leave here, I want you to know that with intentional action, you can also win at both home and work. So, thank you. We're going to break out into our roundtables before we do the panel and be talking about your WIN acronym.